The King of France was absolute, people all were destitute. The year was 1789. Churches paid no income tax, neither did aristocrats, and wars were costing money all the time. But Enlightenment ideas had entered people's ears, like liberty, equality, and brotherhood. People starving broke under feudalism's yoke, knew no church or king was gonna do them any good. There was such financial crisis, the king had to take advice to try an old thing called the States General government. The Estates General had 3 votes, nobles, church, and common folks. 2-1, the commons lose, it always went. The commons in frustration said, we represent the nation. The nobles and the church must lose their privileges. And the rich were scared for real when they stormed to the Bastille. And rebellions also broke out in the villages. At the palace in Versailles, the king and queen were heard to sigh when the National Assembly made a Bill of Rights. Then the Women's March embarrassed them and chased them into Paris, and the church and nobles lost their power overnight. Arguments got hot whether to keep a king or not. Different groups saw different ways to run the country best. But when the royal family tried to flee the country in disguise, they were busted and then put under a house arrest. All of Europe's kings were terrified to hear these things, so France was threatened on all sides by enemies. And when these other kings declared the King of France had to be spared, this made the King of France look worse to the revolutionaries. They had built a new machine, the quick and painless guillotine. They said it's fairer than the king's medieval torture rack. And they put it to a vote, and then they dropped it on his throat. And every king across the world just had a heart attack. They attacked from north and south, and they attacked from east and west. Revolutionary France was in a desperate state. And when the radical Marat was killed politically, now that was what it took for France's outlook to degenerate. The new leader, Robespierre, said enemies were everywhere, and for a year the guillotine was working endlessly. And though he freed the slaves, it's true, Robespierre's head came off too. Then France was run by the more moderate Directory. But the Directory was lame, and France's only good news came from their armies out in Europe winning more and more. And the man who made them win was General Napoleon, but when he came back home he made himself the emperor. So it was a painful climb to get from kings to modern times, but the French Revolution always paved the way, because the ideas that sparked it first have never ever been reversed. It was the biggest change that shaped our Western world today.